Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Friday. It is Friday, although I guess not technically Front Office Friday. We didn't do a live show. We had some scheduling issues and things like that going on. So, Keith, I think we'll have to save the voice for next Friday.
I agree. Yeah, tail end of summer for both of us. Kids going back to school and everything. Everything's a little out of whack, but we'll get back into our routine and we'll get back to front office Fridays. A couple of people reached out and said, "What are you guys going to cover over the next couple months?" Well, we've got off season recaps we're going to do.
Mhm.
We're still waiting on a couple big names to maybe be traded, so of course we'll be all over that, and then we're going to continue to just work on a bunch of different projects and other fun things we got going on. And before we know it, at the end of this month, FIBA World Cup will be
Yeah.
starting up, so we'll have some coverage out of that as well. So it'll be fun, plenty to keep us busy until training camp starts, roughly 2 months ish from now.
Keith, I am so starved for basketball. I was all over those FIBA training camp highlights. I'm like, yes, basketball. were you
Right.
were you doing the same thing?
A little bit, yeah. I was doing that. I was also watching some. I went back and was going back through some summer league stuff from guys I missed, like roster players. That'll be on teams that I missed and didn't see. Get there. There were a couple guys who get signed to camp type contracts and things that I wanted to know a little bit more about and see a little bit more about. So I was tracking down summer league and G League footage and things like that to try to continue to educate myself on these new guys joining the league.
So and that's first of all, you know everybody that winds up playing in the NBA. You know all the summer league champions and all that kind of stuff. So it's not a surprise that you're spending your downtime going back and looking at. I thought you were going to say last season. No, you're looking at summer league guy. You're probably looking at the 15th man on a summer league roster, so that you're
I
very
don't know that it
familiar
went
with.
quite that deep. It's more
Sure.
guys that have a real shot at the NBA. But yeah, I'm trying to understand a little bit more about some of these guys.
That is impressive. I am the type where this time of year, like this is like it's summer, but this is NBA winter, right? Like
Yeah,
there's not a ton going on in the league. For some people, it's like in this industry, it's okay, whew, I can catch my breath. This is a relief. This is more stressful to me than like the busy points of the regular season because I'm driving myself crazy going, okay, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna talk about? What's our show's gonna be about? To me, this is like the most stressful time of the year.
yeah, it definitely is. There's a point where like you can stagger and spread things out a little bit, but you don't want to go too far with that because if you go
No.
too far, it gets you start to kind of lose the plot of what you're doing. But you don't want to do the 50th video in a row where we talk about the Heat haven't made a good enough offer for Damian Lillard
Right.
yet, right? Like because then eventually people are like, I'm tired of that. So yeah, I hear you. It gets a little tough. I think you're also like me in that I find comfort in my routine. So like
Mm-hmm.
I like my routine of get up in the morning. I have the games DVR'd that I didn't get to see the night before. I'm gonna go through those. I'm gonna do my depth chart updates. I'm going to run through transaction stuff and all that. So these dead periods get a little tricky. So that's why I try to fill them with like I make lists of projects. And over on Spot Track, we've got some stuff coming that
Mm-hmm.
we're going to work on throughout the next couple of months that I'm pretty excited about. It's behind the scenes for now, but we'll roll it all out publicly eventually. And I think it'll be new tools that'll be really cool for everybody to work on. Just a little sneak peek. It's going to involve role tags for players. So if you're
Oh,
interested in how much do rim protectors get paid, how much do 3-point specialists get paid, and those kind of things, you'll be able to pull that up and then pull it all together with a couple clicks and see what you're looking to get. So then when people are making that statement of oh, guys who can block shots always get paid, well, you'll be able to pull it up and get a sense of do they or don't they, or at least that's the hope.
and then we're really going to be able to figure out which NBA position correlates directly to running backs in football
There it
once
is.
we can
That's the
figure that
idea.
out.
That's part of the idea. The NBA is it's not quite as positionally defined as football or baseball is. So
Right.
then we have to find other ways to delve into that. So that's what we're trying to figure out.
All right. Well, we do have a little bit of news to get into today to bounce around here, and let's start with this. This is Trendon Watford was that guy on the Blazers last year that would come in, make a few good plays, and you go, "Wait, who was that?"
Hmm.
Because he was pretty good. I was surprised that the Blazers decided to let him go, but he lands with the Nets, and I think the Nets fans should feel not like this is a home run superstar by any means, but for an August edition, this is pretty darn good for the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, big time. I think, Trendon Watford, for those who aren't familiar with him, 6'9" forward. Some Trailblazers fans took to calling him Baby Draymond because they feel like he's, a little bit of Draymond Green in his game. And there's a little bit of that. He's not the defender, the ball handler, the playmaker Draymond is, but there's definitely signs of that in his game. He's a decent scorer. He's got good touch around the basket. He actually stepped out last year and he made, I believe it was 25 of like 60 something 3-pointers last season. I remember looking that up when he got waived. Yeah, 25 of 64 3-pointers. So it's not the biggest sample size, but it's at least trending in the right direction for a guy like him. 72% from the line. Again, not a huge sample size, only 100 free throw attempts. But what I thought was interesting is per 36 numbers, which you got to kind of be careful with, right? You can't overuse those because, sometimes there's a reason why some guys only play 10, 12 minutes a game. But for him, it translates to 14 points, 7.2 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal per game, which are pretty good numbers. The assists are what jumped out at me. There was points last year where Portland put the ball in his hands and really said, all right, be our playmaker. You're going to do some stuff much like a Draymond Green type of situation in Golden State. And he really rose to the occasion. I think he had multiple games last year. I'll look it up to confirm where he had multiple assists in game. Like high assist games. Yeah, an 8 assist game, a 7 assist game, 3 6 assist games. So that's pretty good for a 6'9" guy who's primarily played in and around the paint to this point in his career. So I'm enthused, with this addition for the Nets. It's a front court that there's good players in it, but they don't have necessarily a ton of size outside of Nick Claxton. Their other guys are more threes than they probably are fours, or they're smaller fours. So I think Watford getting them this late in the game, really nice pickup for them.
Yeah, I think he's a nice, not a total contrast, but you've got, Cam Johnson, you've got Royce O'Neal, you've got Mikal Bridges, you get these guys who are good wings, but again, like you said, probably more threes than fours. And Watford has the ability to step outside, but he can also help you out a bit on the boards. And so I think it's a nice addition. Again, not expecting him to come in and get even 20 minutes a night, but just for a guy you're signing now in August, man, can't complain about that.
Yeah, it's weird to me that no one else jumped on this.
Right.
Like I look at even the two teams we cover, could maybe use a guy like this. I think, both of them could have used another just big to kind of have in the mix there. I think the Lakers are trying to go for a little more 4-5 type guy than more of a pure 4, which Watford really is. But I think, they could have fit in there. There's, any number of other teams. I thought someone was going to claim him when he got waived. We talked about it way back then, and nobody claimed him. And that was actually kind of somewhat of a surprise around the league. I think some other teams thought, he would get claimed as well. But maybe there's just something we're seeing that everybody else is missing, or maybe we're seeing something that's not really there. But I think this was a good, solid pickup by the Nets, especially this, like you said, this late in the game, we're really kind of more into the filling out the roster with camp and invites and those kind of things. This is a guy who should make the regular season roster and potentially be a rotation guy for the Nets.
Hey, correct me if I'm wrong. This was a non-guaranteed deal, right?
Yeah, we don't have the full details on it yet. But there's been some reporting out of New York that this is either non or partially guaranteed. So we'll find all that out here shortly, which wouldn't be a surprise again this late in the game. That's generally what happens with a player of Watford's stature. It's not like he's PJ Washington or Christian Wood, who are established, NBA starters in the league, or at least high-end rotation guys. He hasn't proven to be that. So yeah, probably either non-guaranteed, partially guaranteed, or it might even be non-guaranteed with like an opening night trigger or something like that. That would be a surprise.
All right, then we've got unfortunate news from Montrezl Harrell, ACL and meniscus tear. Now, Trez opted out of his deal with the Sixers and then wound up re-signing with the Sixers as the dust started to settle in free agency. What's the future hold for him with the Sixers now? I mean, now that he's going to be done for quite a while. I don't know if it'll be quite the year, but this could knock him out for, the bulk of the season, I would assume, at least.
Yeah, never really fully cracked a permanent rotation role. Only played 57 games for Philly a year ago, but did kind of everything he's always done. He, scored a little around the basket, rebounded, did all the stuff that he's been, throughout the course of his career. I know we were both very surprised when Philly
Mhm.
brought him back. We didn't necessarily think that was going to be a thing that they were going to do, especially because then it was followed up, I believe, while we were still in Las Vegas with Mo Bamba signing there.
Yep.
The Paul Reed offer sheet happened and went down. So we're in a spot. Oh, let's drop the breaking news drop.
Oh, there it is. There it is. There it is.
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
Urgent, but maybe not horrifying.
Yeah, not horrifying. Definitely not.
Anthony Davis has agreed to a 3-year, $186 million max extension. Keith, we're gonna have to get into the numbers on how he can get quite to that number,
Yep.
but 3-year, 186 max extension, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, tying him to the franchise through 2028 for $270 million plus when you add in the 2 years that are already under contract this year and next year. This is the richest extension in NBA history, according to Woj.
Richest, I think he's what do you say, single season, right? Our richest annual extension at 62 million. And that is, someone called me out, and fairly so, because I was not clear on it when we were talking about the Jaylen Brown extension. When I said, hey, Anthony Davis could top this within a couple week here or so, because we had heard that this was coming down the line here, and that was one where when I said that, that's what I meant. I meant the single season amount. I did not mean the full, because obviously he's still got 2 years under contract. So yeah, I mean, this is what they could give him. This was the absolute max that they could get him to. Now that'll be if the cap goes up 10%, and if it goes up 10% again, that's where that number will start at. So there's always a little bit of play in there on these things with Davis, but he's going to get the big bump with his salary coming off. What will happen is, because this, where it says through 2028, that means he had the option. He could have declined next year's player option and then added years onto that. But what he's going to do here, with the way this is worded at least, is he's going to exercise next year's player option.
Mm-hmm.
Then his extension will be built off of that number, that 43.2 million. And then that will give him the 3 more years, which will give him the full 5 years that he could get with the Lakers. So that's what, they're going forward. And this became a far more likely outcome for the Lakers when they re-signed Austin Reeves to his contract, when they re-signed Rui Hachimura, when they re-signed Gabe Vincent, because the Lakers could have flipped it and gone into next summer with a whole bunch of cap space if they thought Davis was going to opt out and James would opt out and go from there. But this clearly says let's go forward with this, and hopefully I've riffed long enough now for you to finish typing and sending off missives to get folks working, because I know you've got Lakers stuff moving now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll get this all rolling on the Lakers side of things. But so this is another example where, when the news is coming from an agent, which Woj specifies this is coming from Rich Paul, sometimes the number that gets put out there, they are a little bit misleading, because everybody want the shock value to be, oh my gosh, that agent got him that much money. That's amazing, right? Like that's what they want. But keep in mind, we don't know, are there incentives in there? We don't know. Again, is this assuming the cap goes up 10% each and every year, which right now the projection is not that it's going to for next year. So these are just things to keep in mind before you freak out with sticker shock or anything like that. But Keith, I've talked a lot about this on Lakers Nation, that I think this is the move the Lakers need to make, not just for right now, but in terms of their future flexibility, where even if next summer LeBron in 2024 does not pick up his player option and decides, I'm going to walk away, and he goes and he plays, God willing, with Bronny. Hopefully Bronny can continue playing. We don't know what that situation is going to be. That's got to be figured out first and foremost. But should the Lakers be presented with a situation next summer where they're at a crossroads, having Anthony Davis under contract is a good thing in my mind, even if you decide you need to go into a rebuild, because you could flip him for assets at that point, or you could rebuild your roster around him. I think it actually helps you preserve flexibility rather than just locking you into a cap space course should the Lakers wind up losing LeBron next summer. So that's the way I've looked at this, that this is a good thing, both in terms of certainty for the future and stability, but also for flexibility as well. Do you agree with that assessment, or how do you see this deal for the Lakers?
I do. I think it's what to your point, what becomes really important in this situation with the Lakers is you have to prepare for a post LeBron future at some point, right? We're no longer where we could continue to make the jokes of LeBron might play till he's 55 years old, right? Like, we can see there's clearly breakdowns coming in his physical ability, in his game, and those things. And to your point, we don't know what's going to happen with Bronny. Hopefully, we're seeing more and more guys get back to playing their sports after these things that would have ended careers when we were younger. There would have been no question of you had a heart attack, you're not playing again. Like, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing guys get back to playing again, and playing contact sports even, and those kind of things. So hopefully, all the best to Bronny, and hopefully that happens, and him and LeBron do share a court somewhere together in the NBA eventually. But with Anthony Davis, taking that out of the equation to some extent, because you can't fully, obviously, right? He's still a big part of the Lakers, meaning LeBron. So with Anthony Davis, what you've done is you're good now through the next 2 seasons, the season coming up and the one after that. Now what you have is you have either, hey, we've got our star in place and we're building everything around Anthony Davis, to a lesser extent, Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, because those are the other guys that are under contract after a couple more years. But what that's an easy sell to a lot of guys. Anthony Davis, it gets forgotten because we have to qualify everything with him when healthy.
Yeah, right.
And that is a fair qualifier because he does miss time, but he's awesome. Like, he is so good when he plays. And it's not like when he plays is in Ben Simmons territory of when he plays. Like, the 15 games he plays a season, he's great. Or Zion Williamson territory. Like, he still plays the bulk of the games, and he's still there when it matters most, right? He was still there in the playoffs. So I think what we're at now is you can go forward in 2 years. So I'm going to just assume this upcoming season, the season after, LeBron's there and you're capped out. You are what you are. In a couple years, you're going to have AD at probably, let's call it 55 to 58 million. It's going to be in that range. I'm doing very quick math off the top of my head. I haven't sat down and plugged this in, but it'll be in that range. You've got Reeves at 13-ish million, Hachimura 17-ish million, Vincent 11-ish million. So you're going to have enough space to go chase somebody and add somebody, and you've got Davis in place. Now let's go kind of the non-preferred route, and everything kind of goes south here. Well, he's still signed, and now he's tradable, and you can move him. And no one's going to balk at, that's too much money for Anthony Davis, barring the outcome of, hey, you can't get through more than a 35, 40-game season, and then he falls apart. Then that becomes a whole thing. But as long as he's moderately healthy and a team can talk themselves into it, that's still a very easily tradable number, and they can cash in and kind of, hey, all right, we're going to kick off whatever our next iteration is by moving him for whatever we get in return for it, and just kind of restart the process that way. So I think what this does for the Lakers is this gives them certainty of, now we can choose our own adventure here, right? We can either move forward with AD as a big part of it, or we can move forward with, hey, if we have to, we can trade him if need be down the line.
If only there was a way to really choose your own adventure in the NBA. Like, should we trade for Russell Westbrook? Let's flip ahead to this page. Oh, no, quick. Right. Good thing we held the page. Turn back.
Right. Were you that kid in the choose your own adventure?
Yes.
Like, you held your page?
I cheated 100%. Nice. Absolutely. I held the page. Oh, no, my knight went into the dungeon and died. People who didn't grow up in the 80s have no idea what we're talking about right now.
I just said, and once again, Trevor and Keith have showed their age on the front office show, talking about books from the 1980s. Yes, actual physical books, not a web page click through thing. Choose your own adventure books, for anybody, go look them up, and they were fun.
They were.
Basically, you read like 5-6 pages of a book, then it gave you a choice. And then it would tell you, all right, if you're going down the right-hand trail, flip to page 58. If you're going down the left-hand trail, flip to page 87. And then you would just continue to choose your own adventures. And it generally ended up in some kind of gruesome, horrible thing, or you were the hero of the story and you made it there. But yeah, man, choose your own adventure books were amazing.
They were. But again, the ability to go back
Yes.
was the best part. But nonetheless, I think this is a good adventure to take here for the Lakers. I think it's a good move. And I think it's a good move for Anthony Davis as well. Potentially he could have waited until next summer, could have bet on himself, so to speak, and tried to opt out next summer and then cash in at that point. But given his injury history, if you could lock up this kind of money right now, do it. Just get it done. And now you've got this. We talk about certainty for the Lakers. This is certainty for Anthony Davis as well. So I think this is a good move on the part of both AD and the Lakers.
Agreed. And our buddy Bobby Marks comes through with the whiteboard breakdown here. And he basically lays out that this is being based off of a 10% cap increase in both 24-25 and 25-26. So for Davis to get the maximum, which this is being represented as, of $57.6 million. And remember I said between 55 and 58. For him to get that in 25-26, the cap would have to go up 10% next year. Doesn't matter for Davis's salary next year because he's already locked in at 43.2. But then he needs it to go up another 10% on top of that. So 10% each of the next two seasons. Mm-hmm. And then that allows him to get up to his new max salary, which would be $57.6 million. And then it would roll forward from there. So that's where that's at. Just because a couple people asked based off the Jaylen Brown extension, Devin Booker, Karl-Anthony Towns are in the same boat. Davis will be in this. When we drop this in a spot track, we will base it off of what the cap increase is projected at from the league for next year, which is only the modest 4.4%. Then we will update as we know more. But we stick with what the official is from the league, unless we have real reason to believe that's not where it's going to go. So That's where this is at with AD. It's also, I know some people, I'm already seeing reaction on Twitter where they're like, hey, man, he got, AD just got a $270 million contract, with this. Kinda. He already had 90 million coming his way. So it's really 3 years, 190 million, 186, whatever it works out to in new money if it ends up there. But regardless, great deal for him. I'll be curious to see if that final season is a player option or not.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. The Lakers have been pretty amenable to giving guys player options in the past. It wouldn't shock me if that's where that goes. But all that will come out in due time.
All right. So Anthony Davis back with the Lakers. I thought maybe a couple of weeks before we got this news, but there it is. It's done. He is sticking around with the Lakers, or at least under contract. Never know in today's NBA, but under contract now for an extra 3 years. So 5 years total. Anthony Davis is now under contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. Keith, there was another player that we want to talk about. And that was Derrick White from the Boston Celtics, also talking about an extension. On a future show, we need to talk a little bit about some other extension guys, and we'll get to that when we have time. But some guys like Jared Vanderbilt, players like that around the league. But Derrick White, particularly saying it would be cool to extend in Boston. What does his situation look like?
Yeah, Derrick White did NBA Today. It was a couple days ago now. Derrick White did it with a completely shaved down to the skin bald head, which were a bunch of people were like, whoa, what happened? Right. Because he's had that kind of unique blown out hairstyle for the entirety of his career. But, now shaved head, Derrick White starting off fresh for this year. And he basically said, yeah, it'd be cool to extend with the Celtics. So he's going to be extension eligible. He does have 2 years left under his current contract. So he's got this upcoming season at, let me check. I think it's about, it's 18.4 million. Then next year at about 19.6 million. So the Celtics, presumably would love to have him back. They got rid of Marcus Smart this summer in a trade that brought in Kristaps Porzingis. They've already announced, Joe Mazzulla said Derrick White will be the team's starting point guard going into next season. So I would think they'd like to do what they can to kind of get him locked up as well. You're already basically locked in because everybody, clearly we're making some assumptions here that Jason Tatum's going to sign the Supermax when he's eligible, but he'll wait a year so then he can add the longest amount of time till he can do that, or longest amount of years to his deal rather, with 5. And the reason why it's 5 with those guys, because it's the designated veteran deal, so they can add that extra year onto it and take it out to 5 years. So that's what we'll see likely coming with Jason Tatum. You're already locked in with him and Jaylen Brown. Might as well lock the other guys up. Kind of, if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound, right? And just go expensive and figure it out, and kind of have that certainty of, all right, we've got our new kind of core of Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, and White locked in, and then everything else floats and revolves around those guys. So I think that'll get done probably, maybe a little bit later this summer, and go from there.
And again, it goes back to that concept of down the road, if you were to lose him to free agency, or so, you can't replace him when you're this high in Texas. So it doesn't make sense to risk that. So that'll be another one to watch to see if an extension does get done. A couple other minor stories for us to get into.
Let's go back. I want to. Poor Montrezl Harrell completely bumped off the face of the earth.
Montrezl Harrell, like his knee gets all torn to shreds, and then he gets upstaged by Anthony Davis. Yeah. So the word is that the 76ers are going to keep Trez. They're not going to cut him to open up the roster spot here. I don't recall the deal being non-guaranteed.
It is not. It's fully guaranteed.
So they're paying him regardless. But they're not going to cut him in order to open up the roster spot. That to me suggests that maybe there's some hope that he comes back. I haven't seen anything official on whether or not he can come back this season, but that at least presents some hope that he can. Or at least, as we talked about,
throw into a trade too. I hate to make it about that, but you could do that if you needed to down the line.
And as we talked about, at least this was a position of extreme depth for the 76ers. They brought in Mo Bamba. They brought back Paul Reed. So it's not like right now they're saying, oh my gosh, we have to go scramble and find a center now.
Yeah, that part of it is absolutely big for Philly. And, Paul Reed has talked a lot about how he's been taking a lot of jumpers and he wants to try to play more at the 4, play next to Joel Embiid at times and those kind of things. We'll see. I mean, that's summertime talk, is a lot of stuff with that. Did you see the video circulating from Team USA basketball practice? Got to be 20, 30 years ago, of Shaq shooting jumpers over Scottie Pippen and Gary Payton.
I didn't see it, but I've seen a lot of stuff like that in the past.
He's knocking them down with ease, and people are like, he's scoring on 2 of the best defenders. And it's like, neither guy really pressed up into his dribble. So
part of Dwight Howard's warm-up routine before every game was to shoot threes. That was just a normal part of his routine. And people would see him hitting threes and they're going, oh my gosh, this guy's a great 3-point shooter too. Why don't they let him do this? It's very different when you've got a defender on you. That was just part of his warm-up. But when you're in a game situation, it's very different. So you're right. Paul Reed playing next to Embiid. All right, maybe, but we'll see what it looks like actually in a game situation. NBA level defense. Is that still something that's workable? We'll have to wait and see.
Notable curmudgeon of a coach, Scott Skiles, when he coached the Magic, used to say all the time, anybody can make them at 5 o'clock when you're warming up in an empty arena without the lights all on yet. It's, when the lights are on and the seats are full, what can you do at 7 o'clock when we tip it off? So that was his kind of way of saying, I don't really care if they're making a bunch of threes when no one's in the building yet. So
assist king Scott Skiles, not one for giving any friendly words there.
He was a grump, to put it lightly, as the coach. He did a decent job coaching the Magic under tough circumstances, but he was not the most pleasant of people to deal with at all times. I'll leave it at that.
All right, let's jump over to Frank Ntilikina landing with the Hornets. He's bounced around a bit in the league, but if you're the Hornets, take a chance on a veteran here and kind of round out your guard rotation, I suppose.
It sounds like it's going to be partially guaranteed. He's basically the replacement for what Dennis Smith Jr. was for them last year. Kind of come in, maybe earn a spot and see where it goes. And we'll see. They've got LaMelo hopefully healthy and ready to go to start the season. You still got Terry Rozier in the mix there. Bryce McGowan's has played in on-ball role quite a bit in the G League for them and some in Charlotte. So we'll see. But they definitely had room for one more guard. And why not with Ntilikina? That's kind of my feeling. You had an open roster spot, bring him in, give him a shot. It worked out with Dennis Smith Jr. He turned that into a ideally probably a much bigger role with Brooklyn. I think I said on the show that I think there's a chance he's going to be the starting point guard for the Nets by the end of the season. I think Smith, will earn that role. But going back to the Hornets, it's interesting. I had a conversation with someone with the Hornets because I was doing some off-season work, and I said, "Is Brandon Miller going to start?" And the initial response was, "Well, yeah, he's the number 2 pick." So then I flipped it to, well, who gets bounced from the starting 5? Because this is without PJ Washington factored in. You're going to have a center out there, right? It's probably going to be Mark Williams, last year's first rounder. Miles Bridges is back. You've got Gordon Hayward still. You got Terry Rozier. You got LaMelo Ball. And then if PJ Washington is back, one of those guys already needs to go to the bench. And that 2 of them would need to go to the bench for Brandon Miller to start. So when I kind of turned it around, they were like, yeah, that's a good question. Well, yeah. Then it turned into the coach speak of, and this was not a coach to be clear, but coach speak of, although it'll play out and guys will fight
right and
in training camp
preseason and all that kind
of
stuff.
But it was it was at least an interesting conversation because it's not as cut and dry because it's those are guys that all deserve to play, and I know probably the easy answer for most people is, well, it's probably Gordon Hayward goes to the bench, but that's your $30 million guy coming off the bench. That feels a little awkward and weird. So just, kind of interesting to me to see how that plays out. Obviously, it'll be a little bit because Miles Bridges is going to miss some time at the beginning of the year. And let's face it, they'll probably have an injury by the time he's out or he's returning, and then it'll kind of go wherever it goes. So
the problem can solve itself.
Yeah.
All right. We are all getting excited for FIBA coming up, the World Cup coming up at the end of the month here, especially those of us who are basketball starved. But what we are not super excited about, everybody who has a player on Team USA or any other team for that matter, is terrified of injury. And Luka, banged knees. It sounds like he's going to be okay, but this is the kind of thing that people are worried about. Again, excited to see these guys play, but this is why fans in some cases are crossing their fingers and hoping their guy does not make it on to their national team for fear of it. Although I still don't think the risk is any greater than the pickup games that they're getting involved in anyway. Right. But nonetheless, it's out there, and Luka, a guy of his caliber, already getting a little banged up, is not going to do anything to calm nerves.
Yeah, and it's always interesting because you get the one side that says, I don't want my guy going that hard, right? They're going harder in this than they do. That tells me the people who say that, they haven't necessarily seen some of these pickup runs because they play hard in those. They play harder in those than they do in like the pro-ams and those kind of things. And we saw in the pro-am last year, Chet Holmgren got hurt and missed his entire rookie season. So these guys are going to play. They're going to play somewhere. A lot of teams prefer the structure of FIBA, where it is, hey, a coach can say, hey, we're going to go through a very light practice today. Whereas if you're just kind of playing pickup on your own, you could play 5 days in a row, hard pickup, and go through it that way. And it's like, let's structure it up. But Luka banged knees towards the end of the first half, did not come back in the second half. That was reportedly planned. This was only an exhibition game. He wasn't supposed to come back. So he is, by all accounts, he's going to be okay and he'll be just fine. But that was a little scary. But his teammate with Slovenia and a key rotation guy, looks like for this year for the Denver Nuggets, Vlatko Čančar, he landed very awkwardly on a dunk in the first half. I think it was in the first half of that same game, and rolled his ankle. But what was scary was he rolled the ankle but grabbed at his knee. And he was actually carted off the court. And that's not great because, for the Nuggets, he's somebody with some of their departures this offseason, namely, especially Jeff Green. They were looking for him to maybe step in and play some more minutes for them. He's been a guy who's done some stuff when given chances in the past. So, Slovenia, be careful out there with these guys. And, we're going to hope for the best, and, hopefully Čančar will be okay. But we saw last year, Boston lost Danilo Gallinari to a torn ACL. And he never get a chance to actually suit up and play for the Celtics because then he was traded in the Porzingis deal. So, that's just part of what comes with the territory in the summer.
Yep. So fingers crossed, hopefully injuries get shut off. FIBA World Cup coming up. Keith, I don't know about you. Like, I watched the clips, the highlights going around and stuff like that. And it's a different ball Like, and
Yes.
it's very noticeable. It's a different ball.
Yeah.
But to me, and I need to talk to some of the players and see if because I've heard players say, oh, it's just, it's no big deal. It's just an adjustment or whatever. I need to find out though, because my impression whenever I watch FIBA play or international play, it's always, and this is just eye test, and nothing more. My impression is always that the ball looks uncomfortable in NBA players' hands. Like it doesn't look right. It looks like they don't handle the same way. It doesn't sit on the rim the same way as an NBA ball does. I'm curious, and I noticed that again while watching the clips that are going around of Team USA. I wonder how big of a difference that really is for these guys. Because again, watching it does not look right to me.
Yeah, you've heard guys talk about it in the past that it takes a while to get used to it. A couple have called it either slippery. Some have called it feels like it plays almost flat. In the past, now they probably have changed the ball since the last World Cup and since the last Olympics and those kind of things. But yeah, NBA players are super picky, I guess, about the ball. Like they want the ball that they want. I mean, remember when the NBA tried to change the ball?
Oh, right, the synthetic
several
ball.
years ago, and then
Remember,
they
it
were
was
like,
cutting
"Nope,
Steve Nash's fingertips.
Yep. Yeah, get this thing out of here. Go back." And they did go like find like balls that had like been put in storage. And again, they go back to playing in these pickup runs and that. A lot of these guys make sure there's an actual NBA ball at those runs that they like to play with. It. They're super particular about it. And who isn't, right? If you played enough, here's let's be real hoopers here for a minute. If you've played enough basketball, I always liked the outdoor runs when the one dude showed up with like a really nice indoor ball and he didn't care about ruining it on the outdoor court.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, man, we're using this all day long then. Because it feels different. It feels better in your hands. It does. I like the wide channels, for the grooves.
Yes, the Wilson ball that had those. Yep.
Yeah, I like those, but yeah, man, that those are always, it does make a huge difference. So yeah, I'm with you. My big thing that I love in the FIBA rules that I wish they'd bring to the NBA, I wish they'd let them take the ball right off the rim.
Yes.
For rebounds. Just I think it would clean everything up, make everything easier. No, it doesn't allow for goaltending. That's not what this is. You can still get called for goaltending in the FIBA game, but just when a ball's on the rim, you can just take it off or put it back in on offense too, one way or the other. I think it would just make everything easier and flow better. But they don't do that, so it is what it is. But yeah, FIBA World Cup starts 3 weeks from today. Is opening day. Games will be early. They're all morning games, so you're gonna have to be up early, especially on the East Coast, and maybe up late, I guess, on the West Coast. And if you've been watching the Women's World Cup soccer, maybe you just try to force yourself to stay up and flow right into this one, because the latest tip off, Canada France on opening day. That's at 9:30 in the morning Eastern. So everything else is starting early.
That's the latest tip off.
That is the latest tip off, 9:30 in the morning.
Gosh, I wouldn't even be up for that.
Yeah, Team USA tip off on Saturday the 26th. The second day is at 8:40 in the East, 8:40 a.m. Eastern. So
holy moly!
Yeah, yep. It's these are early games. Start as early as 4 a.m. in the morning. So
all right. Energy drinks it is. We'll power through. All right. Well,
good breakfast, man.
I should probably go run and talk about Anthony Davis.
Yeah, you should.
Like 10 more times. So I'm going to do that. But this was fun. We thought there wasn't going to be a ton of stuff going on, and it's always great when we get breaking news.
Yeah, it is.
Mid show. Always a good time.
And you know what we say? If you complain that the breaking news drop is too loud, you're too old.
You're too old. That's right. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube, as well as the podcast feed over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.